believe it is. Let's start.
Hello.
Okay, we're good. We're live.
Okay, April 2nd, 2019, at 6:05, work session has now begun. First item on the work session agenda is to discuss the proposed code changes, and we have perhaps a report from staff.
Yes. So we haven't heard this item before. And sorry, Claire, I think we'll get to the open house.
Oh, that's
stuff.
fine, that's fine.
I don't know exactly how many people came, but so first we're talking about the code amendments. This process has been going on for a long time. The city received a grant of $100,000 from Metro a year or two ago to perform a code audit and update of our code to remove and reduce barriers to housing development in the city. And so that was we formed a public advisory group and had this very long process to identify all the ways that our Oregon City's code maybe throws barriers out to affordable housing and housing in general. And we put together a package of code amendments to try and fix that, streamline our code, allow more flexibility, relax some of the design standards citywide for housing. And the code amendments, when the city does a change to our municipal code and it involves zoning, we have to send out a citywide notice. So everyone actually received a postcard probably last year when before the hearing started. And it's expensive to do that. So if we're gonna do it, then sometimes we like to tack on additional code changes that we've been needing or wanting to do to go with that. So the code amendment package that the City Commission and the Planning Commission have been reviewing is mostly to do with housing, but also has some general cleanup items and a few other kind of changes that just needed to be made and have nothing to do with housing. So one of those kind of updates or cleanup items is to Chapter 2.28 Historic Review Board, kind of the procedures and administrative provisions for the board. And that, so I attached that chapter with the red lines or the crossouts and underlines to the agenda. And all of our procedures generally, including appeals and all that, are all concentrated in one chapter, chapter 1750. And so the major removal of that section in chapter 2.28 is just a repetitive, kind of redundant section at this point. And so we don't need it anymore in our chapter 2.28. The part of it that's a little bit nuanced is that nowhere else in our code do we have a fee amount. So, we have fees for all of our different land use applications, and none of those are codified. We just have a fee schedule that's adopted by resolution, and then that goes up every year. Generally, those fees increase every year based on the consumer price index. Only the historic review fee is codified, or the historic review appeal fee. So in order to be consistent with the rest of our code, we would remove that, and it would only be on that fee sheet. Now, the historic review appeal fee and the application fee of $50 Those actually don't go up every year by the Consumer Price Index. Those are set at $50. And if the city ever wanted to consider changing those fees, we understand that it would be through a public process and the board would be involved. And we wouldn't simply make a change to the fee schedule and then have it go to the city commission for adoption by resolution. So I wanted to clarify that because that was kind of a concern that we heard, that, you know, now that you have that fee not in the code, you uncodify it, then, you know, you can increase it, for example. But we have no plans to increase any fees at this point, and if we do, it'll come to you, and we'll discuss it with the public as well. Did you have any questions about the any of the other updates or the changes to that chapter?
Nope.
I didn't. Okay, so the other part of the code amendments that actually have to do with housing, they do affect McLaughlin and Kenema because you know, zoning in those neighborhoods includes a lot of residential zoning and zoning where housing is permitted, of course. And some of the changes in that are being proposed in this set of code amendments include allowing internal conversions of existing structures. I think right now the draft code says that any structure 20 years that's at least 20 years old is eligible for internal conversion. I think this commission is considering changing that, like maybe making it apply to any structure. But right now, the way it's written, the structure has to be 20 years old. And I think that's to keep, you know, newer subdivisions from being built and then everything gets internally converted immediately. So we'll see where that goes. But but for our purposes, you know, most of these homes in these neighborhoods are older than 20 years old anyway, and so they would all be eligible for internal conversions. That the number of units that you can convert the home into can go up to 4, and it's based on the square footage of the property. So if it's a larger property, you might.
When you say the square footage of the property, you're talking the structure.
No.
You're talking
the lot.
The lot, yeah.
So lot coverage percentage.
Right, so if you have a 10,000 square foot property, you might be able to have 4 units. If you have a 5,000 square foot property, you might only be able to internally convert your home into 2 units, which would be a duplex. We can look up the exact numbers, but the maximum is 4. And then what we know about building code is that a different building code is triggered when you have 3 or more units in one building. And that adds a lot of expense to these internal conversion projects. So what we would probably see more of is conversion to duplexes, because that doesn't trigger any building code that's different from a single family building code.
So they'd still be subject to building codes.
Be subject to building code and be subject to historic review. So if you had a designated structure, somebody wants to convert it, a single family home, want to convert it into a duplex, and it involves adding adding another door or entry. If it is just a door, and it meets the historic review board policies, then I could approve it as staff. If it adds any square footage at all, then it would come to the board for review. So these code amendments that allow these conversions, they don't change the applicability of the historic chapter. The other allowance that's proposed is to allow corner duplexes in all, like throughout the city, in all of our single-family zones. So any corner property could develop as a duplex with an entrance like on each corner side.
When you say throughout the city, you're including McLaughlin and
Mm-hmm.
Kenema.
Yeah, so that would be permitted. Of course, it would still, like, let's say we have a vacant lot or, there's a tear down or something in McLaughlin or Kenema, and then it's a corner lot and they want to build a duplex, that still comes to the board for review, and the same same guidelines apply.
I just had can I ask just any question? Like, when I read the ADU stuff,
Yeah.
and I'd asked before if there was a couple things, and one of them they're keeping is retain owner occupancy requirement, which and then the allowable size from 40 to 60% of the gross floor area of the primary or 800 feet. Is 800 feet the max?
Yes.
Eh.
800 square feet. That's currently the max, so we wouldn't be changing the maximum, but we would be.
For some reason, I thought it was going to go up.
No.
Like increase in size.
So if you have 1,000 square foot house and you want to build an ADU, right now you can only build an
600
ADU,
square feet.
400. Right now you can only build 400 square foot ADU.
Oh, so 600 is what
So-
it
so
could be.
Yeah, but if you have a larger home, like a 2,000 square foot home, then 800 is your max.
I just have a hard time with the owner occupancy requirement.
The city commission has a long list of items that they've flagged for additional conversation, and that's one of them, I believe. So on tomorrow actually is the next hearing, and then the hearing after that, I guess the second one in April. They're going to they have this long list of issues that they want to talk about in the code amendments. That's one of them. I don't know whether it's on tomorrow's agenda or
Yeah, I just think
next
that's
one.
that's a crux because it
yeah.
limits the potential for someone to actually create that situation. Whereas a lot of people who may own a house has the potential for an ADU but won't do it, which doesn't help for housing. You know, it limits the ability of an investor
Right.
to do something.
Right. Yeah, so the record is open. They're still accepting public comments.
Just tell them that for me, Kay.
So the board, if
Pass
the
it
board
on.
has any comments as a board, we can talk about that. Or if you want to make comments individually, you're more than welcome to.
What is the current off-street parking requirement for an ADU?
We
It
don't
says
have-
you have to have one. Retain off-street parking requirements for ADUs, which I believe is
Yeah,
one.
we do have it now, and the original recommendation from the project advisory group was to remove the off-street parking and the owner occupancy requirements for ADUs. But then when it went to planning commission, the planning commission decided to keep those two requirements, the off-street parking space and the owner occupancy. So now the city commission is gonna consider both sides and see where they land.
I have fairly strong feelings about the off-street parking because in
Good or bad?
Kenema, at least, on-street parking is so scarce,
Ah.
so overloaded, that the last thing we want to encourage is more people needing to park on the street. So, I think if it's not possible or practical for someone to provide off-street parking, then maybe it's not practical to build the ADU.
That's a tough one sometimes to get that off-street parking for an additional living space.
I know,
Yeah.
but just look at Kenema.
I try not to when I
It
drive by.
doesn't, Kenema's not very well suited to
No.
transit and things of that.
Yeah.
It requires
Or fire
cars and-
engines.
Yeah, just hard
God,
tight
no
turns.
kidding.
Well, anyway, that was my only.
And that
10
was
cents.
my only comment on it.
And the only other thing I had was, this is back to the policy, the changes, on the municipal code according to is you've wiped out the entire thing for appeals,
In that chapter.
It's,
but it is covered within,
covered
okay.
It's covered in chapter 1750,
Okay,
so our
oh,
appeal,
so it's redundant,
our appeal process is described in 1750, you know,
Okay.
appeals go to city commission.
so it doesn't have to be on this one, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and then there
I
was a
didn't
line
catch
about secretary or something like that.
Yeah.
We struck that.
I don't think, even when I was on the board way back when,
Uh-huh.
I don't think we had a secretary, that's you
Right.
guys,
Right,
and him.
yeah,
yep. We have a video for that, a camera for that. Okay,
okay.
great. So, well, go ahead, Ken, sorry.
Yeah, if,
I'm jumping ahead.
go ahead and jump.
Okay.
I think we finished that part of the discussion.
Okay, so HRP policies, we're back to that. We just had our open house. I think, I'm gonna guess 20 to 25 people.
25?
Yeah,
Wow,
over the 2 hours.
very cool.
So I did not add anything additional to your agenda from what we had on the last agenda, on this topic. So if you, if anybody wants to talk about anything specifically, I'm happy to do that. But if there isn't any strong desire from anyone on the board, I did create a questionnaire / survey form, for people that came to the open house. And I probably will post this online so that we can get some more input, because I think we only got a handful of them back. But it does have some kind of pointed questions on fence and wall types. So I thought maybe this could be fodder for discussion today amongst you all. So I will pass down copies of this. And I haven't, we haven't heard a whole lot of specific input about building materials, from anyone. I think a lot of the comments are focused on fences and walls. And so, just wanna give you a heads up that, you know, maybe our policies are fine, are mostly fine as they are, and that's why we're not really hearing a whole lot from people. But we're
We've
trying.
talked mostly about fences and walls, and that's consumed our time. And maybe it would be appropriate to start with the materials and then work back to the fences and wall
That's
discussion.
fine too.
Just because maybe, as you imply, it's a short topic.
Sure. Yeah, so wherever you want to start, but I have kind of pretty open-ended questions about the building materials and solar panels, but then I felt it was important to get specific input on the fence types. So there are some just questions that, like clarifications that I feel like I wanted to make and didn't want to leave it too open-ended.
Well, the big challenge here is, number one, the declining availability of quality wood products and the rising price of quality wood products. And the ever increasing availability or selections available in substitutes for wood products. Now, we had mentioned specifically the Fibrex windows and the fiberglass windows. And I'm not sure that a person standing and looking at them would detect the difference. Fibrex, is that an Anderson window
It's Anderson.
trademark?
It's a composite.
Yeah. But I don't know, I think that if we don't offer the public some flexibility to correspond with the changing reality, we run the risk of pricing people out of making improvements to their property. The cost of wood that is of sufficient quality to last as decking material is just about the same as composite now.
Yeah,
Composite requires no maintenance and it lasts for a long time. I almost said forever, but I
I
know
would
it
disagree
doesn't.
with you on those 2 points,
Okay.
only because seeing it, composite is more expensive than wood. And in the Northwest, it's plastic, it'll last, but in the Northwest, it's still cups, it still flakes, it still oxidizes, and it still grows mold. And it gets slippery, so it has all the same properties as wood, but costs more. But it's marketed so heavily to the consumer, because it's hey, put it in, and you never have to do anything to
Right.
it, right? You never have to clean it, but the reality is,
You do.
I've been on that stuff and I've fallen on it because of moss growing on it. And if you've ever seen white PVC fence, after a couple years it turns green. So believe it or not, moss still grows on plastic and it still grows on that decking, and people do buy into it. And we've put it in for clients before, but they pay a lot more for it. And so that's
Okay.
a rebuttal to that, but I'm just one opinion. But people always, when you talk about it, they always they want to do composite. That's why I'm kind of against it on older homes. It just maybe in the back, but not in the front. That would be always my gig. But on the other hand, Fibrex or fiberglass windows, if I'm walking by them, I can't really tell the difference. But I could tell a composite deck like that.
Yeah, you can tell a vinyl window like that.
Yes.
Usually.
But it's pretty tough. I think you could tell a vinyl window really easily, but not so much a fiberglass window because it has the characteristics of a wood window.
And
That has the same reveals where vinyl doesn't in some cases.
Right.
So it's
we
it's a
allow the
tomato tomato.
fiberglass windows on new construction in the historic district,
Yes.
but not as a replacement for wood windows in a historic structure.
Yeah, and for someone to build a house, and they can still do wood windows, but it's so cost prohibitive. It's very expensive. And in the Northwest, again, wood windows worked really well in the old days because there was no insulation. Houses breathed, so it worked really well. Today, not so much. And fiberglass, out of all the products, shrinks and expands the least out of all the products today. So it's a great thing to have. It's the best bang for your buck, although it's more money. But that's John's 10 cents.
So what are your, where are you all leaning for these alternative window types, as far as
Are you
on
saying,
accessory structures? You have a designated structure if someone's building a detached garage with a window in it or an ADU. Would you be supportive of allowing those types of windows by right in those structures, in non-contributing structures in Kenema?
I think it would be because if you had a house that you can't really replicate that window other than having it custom made, that's probably okay. And most of the time when it's an accessory structure or a garage,
Is that the back?
they always had different things anyway in them.
And they were less fancy and.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would have no problem knowing that, let's say an ADU or a garage, that you would require what you would require on new construction. But that's just me. I don't know. Everybody's got a different opinion. So,
I think for accessory buildings, it's gonna depend, in my mind, on the level of visibility. If it's highly visible, I think it's probably going to require a higher standard. If it's hidden out in the backyard, we can cut some slack there.
So maybe it's street facing.
Unless they're on the corner, then what?
I'm on a corner.
Well, I mean.
I'm on the fence about it, but don't. Yeah.
April Fool's was yesterday.
Yes.
And non-contributing structures in Kenema?
There's so many of those.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always like, why put standards on those things, like those apartment buildings that have aluminum windows?
Well, they have vinyl windows now.
They might have vinyl, but it's like,
They upgraded.
you have that blanket, it's like, I can't. No, I don't believe in that.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is the policy says, in-kind materials.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if somebody has the aluminum or vinyl windows, we don't really want them to necessarily replace with in-kind materials. So what kind of guidance, what other guidance can we give them?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have
but-
to have,
But if you have a 70s duplex that's there, that's clearly from the 70s, you're not gonna ask them to put historic windows in.
Right.
We addressed that a couple of years ago, probably just before you came back on the board, for a fourplex in Kenema, replacing the old original aluminum windows. And he asked to be allowed to put in vinyl, and we approved it.
I would have been
Under the
hard.
at least it's a step up
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
aluminum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, so, I mean, that was an example of something that had to come to the board. They would have been allowed by right, I guess, to replace with aluminum, because of the way the policy's written.
Yeah,
So,
Huh.
you know,
well, aluminum's still done in commercial applications. But
right.
well, I think
You can't get it for homes.
that we considered the vinyl windows to be an upgrade in the residential
For sizzle.
over the original aluminum. The original single pane aluminum, as a matter of fact, in that case.
So something like that, do you think it's still appropriate to still kind of take those as a case-by-case basis and have them come to the board? Or would you want to try to write the policy to address those kind of situations?
For the non-contributing,
Yeah,
that could probably almost be an administrative thing, right?
right, if we have policy guidance, because I can only really make decisions that don't involve a lot of discretion, because it's it's what we call a type 1 decision, which doesn't have public notice, and it has to be pretty clear and objective. So we'd have to write the policy to give some clear and objective criteria or guidance for if staff were to make the decision.
So, because right now, if they have aluminum windows on, non-contributing, that's all they'd have
Technically,
to
yeah,
do. Okay.
yeah.
Not that it would. Interesting.
Interesting.
Do you get a lot of,
I haven't really about windows. I haven't. I mean,
maybe then it's okay to leave it as it is and deal with it as we did with the fourplex.
just have them
in-
come to the
in
board.
Kenema, because it's not like we're being buried.
No, that was a
Right.
few years ago or whatever. If it's once every 2 or 3 years, then that's probably not a big deal. Then.
Yeah, well, it's not a big deal for us. It might be a big deal for the property owner, but it's still, the fee is low. It's just their time that it takes to get on the agenda and, wait for the next hearing.
Yeah, that's kind of a headache.
So as much as we can, I think, it's beneficial to these property owners out there to have the policy cover as much as we're comfortable it covering so that they can do the work, in an efficient timeframe.
Phrased that way, then I like the idea of writing it down as long as we don't end up boxing ourselves in. I can't think of a case where somebody asking to change from aluminum frame windows to vinyl windows, where I would say, no, you can't do that. Can't think of a good reason why.
Except in commercial applications, maybe.
Yeah, I'm talking residential, yeah. And I'm losing my voice.
Well, this is all very exciting. Snooze fest. Yeah.
Well, maybe I can take a stab at crafting something up for you guys to look at.
Sure.
And we can-
Okay,
Okay. But it's not gonna be, it's probably gonna have to look slightly complicated.
It's gonna have
If
to.
we're gonna try and address lots of situations, it might not be like,
Keep it simple, man.
try as good as I can.
and then the question of the windows for replacing wood windows.
With composite.
Whether it's contributing or non-contributing. Would these renewal by Anderson or the fiberglass or Fibrex be, pretty sure they're acceptable on a non-contributing structure.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever allowed them on a contributing structure. Have we?
The Andersons? I think,
Not that I know
I mean, the Fibrex or the fiberglass?
of. We may have allowed a fiberglass clad
Wood window.
wood
Yeah.
on a historic structure.
Yeah.
But non-contributing is there, do we regulate that? If
In
they-
Kenema,
Oh, okay, but not in the McLaughlin.
right.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
And I don't actually know if I could see the difference. John is shaking his head, and I don't see the difference, but then
Yeah.
I'm generally not looking.
I do have,
I don't think you see it too.
a sample of a Fibrex, that little window over there, we had out at the open house. If you wanna take a closer look at it, and then I can dig out somewhere, I have little swatches of aluminum and, the fiberglass.
Glass.
They're both white, but you can kinda compare what they look like, and so I could dig that out if you'd like to look at those.
Yeah, I've seen that. What I haven't seen or don't know that I've seen it, maybe I've seen it and just didn't know that what I was looking at. I think that's entirely possible. But if you can't tell by looking at it, it ought to be okay.
Yeah.
You don't,
It'll go away when you,
I don't know what I hit.
Yeah, I don't, mine did that too, and I had to mouse click on that.
There it was.
Got the magic touch. So, that would require a, change in policy. Is there a compelling reason to do it, to change the policy? Is it a problem for people?
Well, I mean, our next meeting, I'm going to be summarizing the public input for you. So we may, I haven't read the sheets that we got in today, but we may have some good input from folks about that.
Okay.
I don't hear stuff like that all the time. But I do know, we've had some recent situations with vinyl windows being, put into a historic home because people moved in, they didn't know, or they say they didn't know. And so if we had a policy that was maybe a little bit more flexible, it could potentially avoid some of those situations where people try to get away with other materials. But I don't hear a huge outcry right now for us to change our policies about windows. I don't think we're going to.
Okay. So we
You
can
want sleeping dogs lie.
kind of feel that way, yeah. We can finish that discussion then after looking at the public
Yeah,
input at our next session. Okay. And that leads us right back to walls and fences.
Yeah,
Do
so
we
I
know
have
any
more
more than
pictures.
we used to?
So I think where I want to make sure that the policy gives clear direction to property owners. So I think that there are some fences that are just not addressed in the policies, and if we could add them, if we think it's something that we can give clear direction on, then we should. So if we're looking at this packet, chicken wire and goat fence, I don't know what else, how else people may refer to that, but neither of those are really addressed in the policies.
Really?
And I have a neighbor that has a goat fence.
Yeah. So the policies allow woven wire fences as acceptable in front yards currently. But I don't think that the woven wire is meant to cover either of these types. So I think we could clarify it. So we'll, of course, we're getting public input on this, and so we can look at what we get. But if you all want to react to any of this at any point.
The chicken wire and goat wire, my reaction is no.
What is the woven wire that's in there right now? What would that be like?
It's
It's like that rolled kind of curled stuff that's interwoven or
Wool.
something like that. Like
a little bit more
it's ornate.
Yeah, it's a little bit more ornate. Does this have
Oh,
feet?
yeah,
Are these like
Wait.
feedback?
I thought it was like a decorative.
Yeah, this is what they handed out.
No.
Yeah. There's
Oh,
different
yeah,
versions of
I-
that, but yeah, it's like
Mhm.
twirled.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of fancy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been around for a long time.
Long time.
This thing feels like it's
Yeah,
getting feedback or
we're
echo.
getting more
Well,
noise
suddenly
there.
it started that way.
Yeah,
I could hear you guys like louder, maybe me too.
Yeah,
isn't that weird?
Maybe they got turned up.
we were being too quiet, maybe. Poured concrete also is not addressed in the policies. We do allow it for new construction typically.
There's walls in the districts that have, their concrete with stucco on them or something.
What
What about
the
Seaport?
design, the design of the concrete makes a big difference.
Yeah, I don't
That's
see
basically a real simple,
brick.
So brick, if the fence type was not really controversial, like it's already addressed in the policy and nobody's really questioning that or has a problem with it, then I
Like
didn't
picket.
include it in here.
Like wood pickets, not,
So yeah, wood picket, brick,
yeah.
basalt.
Sure.
these are the ones that are just on either side of the border or
These
switch.
are ones where I think we could add clarification, or that, I've gotten some comments in that, dispute maybe our current policy.
Do we differentiate at all between a fence and a pen?
A pen?
like a chicken coop or something. you're talking?
Exactly.
I don't think we mean to regulate chicken coops.
Good.
But if they're using that as a fence, is that what you're,
Well, if you
as
have
a barrier?
right, so if
Every
you-
now and then you'll see a dog run that is
Like a dog run
built
type?
against the fence. In fact, fairly often you see a fence being one side of the dog run. And what is acceptable for a fence between two properties may not include what
Right,
a dog run would be.
yeah. I mean, I think if it's functioning as a fence, then we should,
Then it should be a
yeah.
fence.
But if it is interior to the property where it's a chicken run or a raised bed or something like that, then we should, I don't think this is meant to regulate that.
Okay, good.
We don't regulate that, do
Right.
we?
Right. On the next page, I think one of my, more major questions is this, vertical wood board. So, we allow picket fences. I have a draft definition of it that defines the picket fence as spaced boards with that 1 to 6 inches of space between the pickets. But we see a lot of, fences with no spacing. And we see people putting it in the front yard, which the policy does not currently allow. But I would like to know if you see a big difference between spaced pickets and non-spaced pickets, and, should we just kind of allow any sort of vertical wood board fence in the front yard as long as it meets the height limit?
There's there's one or two that have gone up in the McLaughlin, on 9th that I can think of, and the one, I mean, it looks okay, it's not objectionable, it's looking, so I think that could, I don't have a problem with it. The good neighbor fence, usually those are taller though.
Yeah.
So those wouldn't be on the front
Right,
facade, but
right.
we allow them on the sides
So
or not?
The side, I'll give you another board here. So the diagram of front corner and rear is here. So right now, our policy, sorry, I'm not speaking into the microphone. Right now, the policy does not allow a good neighbor or unspaced wood vertical board fence in the front.
Right,
Only picket.
right, but on the
space.
sides
On the side and the rear, yes, that's permitted
And
today.
does it go all the way up to the sidewalk, or does it have like a,
So if it's anywhere in front of the house, it's considered front yard.
front yard? Okay, okay, that's what I was thinking, whatever the house setback is,
Right.
where it can, step up,
Right.
correct? Yeah.
So there are several fences out there where if, people have built kind of, like the picture on the left here, they've built fences kind of like that in their front yard, like on the side, like you're saying, Claire, but in front of the house. And it, to meet our policy, unless we change it, they would have to like remove every other board. Which, I mean, that might be fine, but, I think that's one of the major questions for me, because this is probably the biggest violation that we see is people building fences like that in the front.
Do you know why they build them?
They don't know.
Sturdier? I have no idea.
They just don't know.
Maybe
the
they have
policy.
small dogs.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I have a picket fence and I've got like chicken wire along the very bottom, so my
Yeah.
dog can't get
Yeah.
out. And is this looking from the outside? To me, it should, I don't know, it just looks weird with the post. I don't know if they just replaced it with
Oh, the PT post.
yeah. To me, it should have. To me, this looks like it's from looking from the back, because I've seen these fences a lot of times, like the 2x4 on the top that's kind of sitting, like this. Can it just be on the inside and have more of a finished look on the outside? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I think this picture is on a side yard, and I think it's from Portland, not from Oregon City, but the nicer looking part of the fence is facing the property, and that side of the fence is facing the neighbors.
See, I think it should be the other way around. It should be nicer looking from, the street, because it gives it more of a finished look than,
It's like wrapping a box. You put the pretty stuff on the outside.
yeah.
That's how you look at it.
And you said that lots of people are building
Well, I've seen them around town, and we've had some code enforcement.
Oh, yeah?
when you see a law that is being commonly disobeyed or ignored, you
Or if
have
they
to
didn't know
wonder
it.
about the appropriateness of the law.
So in other words, if everybody does it, it's okay?
Kinda, yeah. Well, I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean,
isn't that why pot is legal in this state?
that's not under our purview.
No, that's outside of, yeah, okay. I don't know, I don't find the closely spaced boards offensive.
The chain link. See, I don't have a problem with much of anything except for the good neighbor one and the hedge slats and that gabion?
Gabion wall?
Gabion wall. It's French.
Yeah. And the steel aluminum, that's not
Yeah,
really,
Gabion wall to me is an industrial
yeah.
retaining wall. And
So Claire, would you like to break out the good neighbor fence from this and have it treated separately? Or consider it in the same category as vertical wood board, these two photos?
Yeah, I'm not, I mean, except for the side yard, I don't really think that that's a good one to have in the front yard.
that's what I have.
In your front yard?
Mhm.
Oh, sorry.
It was there, no, it was there when I bought the
Oh.
house. And I cut it down from 6 feet tall to 3 feet tall.
Whoa,
Yeah, took a chainsaw to it.
I don't have any problem with the recycling. Should we just go by each one and just kind of give our, because
We've got to
we're
kind of
running
wrap
out of
up.
time.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
We're out of
Yeah.
time. But next time we'll have the input from the public.
Yep.
And why don't we set it as our goal then to pin these things down?
Should,
Make a
instead of starting
recommendation.
at 6, should we allow a little bit longer? Because just, absorbing all of that and coming up with something. Or have a meeting, an extra meeting or something to where we can just focus on it and spend 2 hours on it instead of piecemealing, especially once you've gotten the feedback from the comment, citizen comments.
I don't know, I'm flexible, I can be here, but I don't know about other board members come in any earlier than 6.
That's tough.
Okay, or just doing it on on
We
another
can't
night
get
if
a
we do it
quorum
far
at
enough
some
ahead.
point in
No.
scheduling it, so.
I know, like, we all need another meeting, but I just think if we spent a little, an hour, we're really kind of, crunched in it, I think, making changes like that, I think we should spend a little bit more.
You're talking just on fences.
Fence, I guess primarily, but also, maybe the windows or, I don't know, just,
You could take
You
a,
can get us the input from the open house ahead of the next meeting, so we can have that to go over at our
absorb,
leisure.
right?
And so if we come in prepared next month with that under
Okay,
our
I
belts,
just
I think
thought-
we can.
actually, it's the 23rd, right?
Steamroll it.
I don't even know if I'll be in town. Well, I should probably break.
Yes, let's adjourn the work session and return for the public meeting.
Great.